In any military, the officer corps is the brain. Soldiers fight, NCOs lead. But it is the officers, the colonels, the generals, the staff planners and intelligence chiefs, who decide where armies go, how they fight, and what they are trying to achieve. Remove the brain and the body collapses. This is not a metaphor. It is a principle of warfare as old as warfare itself. And it is the principle that Ukrainian forces applied with surgical precision days ago on the Eastern Front when they destroyed a Russian field headquarters during an operational briefing, killing a major general, multiple colonels, and the entire planning staff responsible for a major Russian offensive that had been weeks in preparation. The offensive died in the same room as the men who planned it. And the story of how Ukrainian forces found them, tracked them, waited for the perfect moment, and then annihilated them is a masterclass in intelligence-driven warfare that Russian military commanders across the entire front should study carefully, because any one of them could be next. The intelligence chain that led to the strike began approximately 10 days before the attack. Ukrainian signals intelligence, units that monitor Russian radio and electronic communications around the clock, detected an unusual pattern of encrypted traffic between a Russian divisional headquarters located well behind the front line and a forward command post approximately 8 kilometers from the contact line. The volume and classification level of the traffic suggested that something significant was being planned. Routine communications between these nodes followed predictable patterns, and the sudden increase in high-priority encrypted messages broke that pattern in ways that experienced Ukrainian analysts recognized immediately. Over the following days, Ukrainian intelligence assembled the picture piece by piece, intercepted fragments of communications. Not the encrypted content itself, but the metadata surrounding it. Call signs, transmission timing, frequency usage, and the digital signatures of specific Russian communications equipment indicated that a senior officer was being expected at the forward command post. The call signs used in the traffic were associated with division level and above command authority. The security protocols being activated were consistent with preparations for a general officer visit. Ukrainian human intelligence assets in the area reported increased Russian military police activity along the roads leading to the command post and the arrival of additional security vehicles at the location. By the 5th day, Ukrainian intelligence had a high-confidence assessment. A Russian general officer, likely a major general commanding a division or serving as a deputy corps commander, was planning to visit the forward headquarters to personally brief and coordinate an upcoming offensive operation. The timing of the visit was narrowed to a window of approximately 48 hours based on logistics patterns. The movement of supply vehicles, the pre-positioning of communications equipment, and the arrival of staff officers from multiple subordinate units who would participate in the briefing. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones began intensified surveillance of the forward command post. The facility was located in a partially destroyed industrial building on the outskirts of a settlement, a common choice for Russian command posts because the thick concrete walls provided protection against shrapnel and the existing structure could be reinforced without attracting the attention that new construction would generate. Ukrainian drones observed a steady increase in activity around the building in the days before the general's arrival. Additional camouflage netting was erected over the courtyard, antenna masts for satellite communications were installed on the roof. New defensive positions were dug around the perimeter, and the security detail was reinforced from approximately 15 soldiers to more than 40, including what appeared to be a dedicated close protection team with distinctive equipment and vehicles that Ukrainian analysts associated with VIP security. On the morning of the strike, Ukrainian drones confirmed the arrival of a small convoy at the command post. The convoy consisted of 2 BTR-82A armored personnel carriers, a UAZ command vehicle with communications antennas, and 2 armored SUVs, a vehicle configuration consistent with a general officer's tactical transport. The convoy arrived at approximately 09:15 local time. Ukrainian drone operators watched as officers emerged from the vehicles and entered the building. The security detail established an expanded perimeter, blocking roads and positioning observation posts on rooftops. The satellite communication antennas on the building's roof became active within minutes of the convoy's arrival, confirming that a high-level secure communication session was being established. The Ukrainian brigade commander responsible for the sector now faced the critical decision: when to strike. An immediate attack would destroy the building and anyone inside. But at 9:15, the briefing had not yet begun. Many of the subordinate unit commanders who were expected to attend had not yet arrived. Striking too early would kill the general, but miss the staff officers whose collective expertise was equally irreplaceable. Striking too late risked the general departing or the briefing dispersing to smaller groups in separate locations. Ukrainian drone operators maintained continuous surveillance, counting vehicles and tracking individuals as they arrived at the building. Between 9:15 and 10:40, an additional 6 vehicles arrived, carrying officers from subordinate units who had traveled from positions across the sector to attend the briefing. Ukrainian analysts identified at least 3 vehicles bearing the markings and antenna configurations of regimental command groups. By 10:40, the arrivals had stopped. The perimeter security had tightened. The building was full. The brigade commander gave the order at 10:52. The strike was a coordinated combination of precision-guided munitions and drone attacks designed to ensure total destruction of the target with no possibility of escape. The first weapons to arrive were 2 precision-guided artillery rounds, likely GPS-aided munitions with terminal guidance, that struck the building within 1 second of each other. The first round hit the roof directly above the main briefing room, penetrating through to the interior before detonating. The concrete ceiling collapsed inward, burying the room and everyone in it under tons of reinforced concrete, steel, and debris. The second round struck the eastern wall of the building at ground level, blasting through the structure and collapsing the adjacent section, which Ukrainian intelligence assessed was being used as the communication center for the meeting. Within seconds of the artillery impacts, Ukrainian FPV drones, pre-positioned and already in flight before the first rounds landed, descended on the courtyard and exits. The drones were tasked with a specific mission: ensure that no one who survived the initial strike could escape the building. The first drone struck a BTR-82A that had begun to move, likely the general's vehicle attempting an emergency extraction. The shaped charge hit the vehicle's engine compartment, disabling it immediately and setting it ablaze. A second drone hit the other BTR-82A as crew members were scrambling to open hatches. A third drone targeted a group of soldiers from the security detail who were running toward the collapsed building, likely attempting a rescue. The explosion scattered them across the courtyard. Ukrainian artillery then delivered a second salvo, 3 rounds of conventional high explosive, targeted at the perimeter security positions and the parked vehicles. The purpose was to prevent any organized response and to destroy the communications equipment in the remaining vehicles that might be used to alert Russian headquarters to the attack before Ukrainian forces could exploit the disruption. The entire strike sequence, from the first precision round to the last artillery shell, lasted approximately 4 minutes. When Ukrainian reconnaissance drones surveyed the site 30 minutes later, the building had partially collapsed into itself. The roof was gone. One wall had fallen outward. Smoke and dust rose from the rubble. In the courtyard, the 2 BTR-82As were burning. The armored SUVs were shredded by shrapnel. Bodies of security personnel lay scattered around the perimeter. There was no movement, no sign of organized activity, no attempt at rescue or recovery by Russian forces. The command post had ceased to exist. Confirmed losses. Ukrainian intelligence confirmed the following casualties through a combination of intercepted communications, drone surveillance of subsequent Russian recovery operations, and intelligence from sources in the area. Killed 1 major general, later identified through intercepted communications as the deputy commander of a Russian combined arms formation responsible for offensive operations in the sector. His death was confirmed when Russian encrypted channels transmitted emergency notifications up the chain of command using protocols reserved for the loss of general officers. Killed 2 colonels, identified as regimental commanders from subordinate units who had traveled to the briefing. Their deaths were confirmed when their units reported loss of command to higher headquarters. Killed 3 to 4 lieutenant colonels, staff officers from the divisional planning section, including the Chief of Operations and the Chief of Intelligence for the formation. Killed 8 to 12 additional officers of various ranks, company and battalion commanders, staff officers, communications specialists, and intelligence analysts who had assembled for the briefing. Killed 15 to 20 soldiers from the security detail and vehicle crews who were in or near the building and courtyard at the time of the strike. Total confirmed killed approximately 30 to 40 personnel, including 1 general, 2 colonels, and at least 15 officers of field grade or above. Wounded and status unknown. An additional 10 to 15 personnel, based on the number of individuals observed in the area at the time of the strike, minus confirmed killed, and those accounted for in subsequent Russian communications. Economic and strategic analysis. The direct material losses, the building, vehicles, communications equipment, encrypted systems, maps, and documents, total approximately $508 million. The 2 BTR-82As alone account for roughly $3 million. The satellite communications equipment, encrypted SATCOM terminals, frequency hopping radio systems, and portable command and control infrastructure destroyed in the building, represent another $204 million in specialized equipment that is increasingly difficult for Russia to procure under Western sanctions on dual-use electronics and precision manufacturing. But the true cost of this strike is measured not in equipment, but in the irreplaceable human expertise that was destroyed inside that building. Expertise that took decades to develop and that Russia cannot replace on any timeline relevant to this war. A major general with decades of military experience, academy training at Russia's Combined Arms Academy, General Staff Academy education, Staff College, multiple command assignments at progressively higher levels, operational experience in Syria, Chechnya, or other conflicts, represents an investment of 20 to 30 years of institutional development. This is not a soldier who can be replaced by promoting the next man in line. The next man in line does not have 20 years of command experience. He does not have the relationships with senior officers across the military that allow him to cut through bureaucracy and get things done. He does not have the operational intuition that comes from years of making decisions under pressure. Russia has lost over 20 generals since February 2022, according to various estimates. Each loss forces the promotion of less experienced, less capable officers into positions of enormous responsibility, and the quality of Russian operational planning suffers visibly as a result. The colonels killed in this strike were regimental commanders, the critical operational link between divisional strategy and tactical execution on the ground. These are the officers who translate a general's intent into specific orders for battalions and companies. Training a competent regimental commander requires 15 to 20 years of progressive military education and command experience. Russia cannot produce them faster, no matter how many mobilization decrees the Kremlin signs or how many patriotic speeches are delivered on state television. The staff officers, the operations chief, the intelligence chief, the fire support coordinator, the logistics planner, the communications officer, were the institutional memory and operational engine of the formation. They held in their heads the details of the planned offensive, current friendly and enemy dispositions, attack axes and phase lines, fire support plans with hundreds of pre-planned targets, logistics arrangements for ammunition and fuel, medical evacuation routes, communications plans with frequencies and call signs, timing sequences, primary and alternate objectives, and contingency plans for every foreseeable complication. Their deaths did not merely delay the Russian offensive, they erased it entirely. A new staff must now be assembled from officers who do not know each other, do not know the terrain, and do not know the plan. New intelligence must be gathered from scratch. New fire support plans must be coordinated with artillery units that have lost their points of contact. New logistics arrangements must be established. This process takes weeks at the absolute minimum, and the resulting plan will be inferior to the one that died in that room, built by officers with less experience working under greater time pressure. What this means for Russian command. The systematic targeting of Russian command infrastructure has been one of Ukraine's most effective and most psychologically devastating strategies throughout this war. Russian military doctrine is heavily centralized, far more so than Western militaries. Decisions flow from the top down through rigid hierarchies. Initiative at lower levels is not merely discouraged, it is actively punished. A Russian battalion commander who deviates from the plan handed down by his regimental commander, even if the situation on the ground demands adaptation, risks court-martial rather than commendation. This means that the loss of a senior commander does not merely create a temporary gap. It creates paralysis that ripples through the entire formation. Subordinate units that have been trained to wait for orders from above find themselves waiting for orders that will never come from a commander who is dead. Ukrainian forces exploit this centralization ruthlessly, targeting command posts, communications nodes, and senior officers whenever intelligence provides an opportunity. Since February 2022, Ukraine has killed over 20 Russian generals and hundreds of colonels and senior staff officers. Each loss forces the promotion of less experienced officers into positions they are not prepared for. Officers who lack the operational judgment, the institutional relationships, and the confidence of their subordinates that their predecessors possessed. The cumulative effect is a progressive degradation of Russian command quality that compounds with every successful Ukrainian strike. Russia has attempted to adapt, moving headquarters further from the front, using more dispersed command structures, limiting the time senior officers spend at forward locations, conducting briefings via video link rather than in person. But each of these adaptations comes at a significant operational cost. Commanders who operate from rear area bunkers, 50 or 100 kilometers from the front, lose the situational awareness that only physical proximity to the battlefield can provide. They make decisions based on maps and reports rather than personal observation. And in a war where conditions change hourly, maps and reports are always out of date. Dispersed command structures are slower to make decisions because information must travel through more nodes before reaching the decision maker. And video briefings, while safer, lack the nuance of face-to-face interaction, the ability to read body language, to challenge subordinates directly, to sense the morale and confidence of the men who will execute the plan. The Russian general who died in this building came forward because he understood that some decisions cannot be made from the rear. He came to see the ground, to meet his commanders, to coordinate an operation that required personal leadership. And Ukrainian intelligence was waiting for exactly that moment, because they know that the most dangerous Russian officer is one who leads from the front, and eliminating him before he can act is worth any expenditure of ammunition and effort. Ukrainian intelligence will not stop hunting. Every Russian headquarters, every staff meeting, every general officer visit is a potential target. The sensors are always watching, drones overhead, signals intelligence monitoring every frequency, human sources reporting every unusual movement. Russia's officer corps is being systematically degraded, one command post at a time, one briefing at a time, one general at a time, and no amount of adaptation can fully counter a threat that is as persistent, as patient, and as precise as Ukrainian targeting has become. Since February 2022, Russia has lost approximately 1,249,000 soldiers killed and wounded, over 11,600 tanks destroyed, nearly 24,000 armored vehicles lost, thousands of artillery systems eliminated, and now increasingly, the men who command the armies that operate those weapons are being hunted and killed with the same relentless efficiency. The Russian military machine is losing not just its tools but its brain. And a machine without a brain is just metal. The Ukrainian operation. The intelligence officers who built the targeting picture over 10 days of patient, painstaking analysis, correlating signals intelligence intercepts with drone surveillance footage, human intelligence reporting, vehicle movement patterns, and communications metadata analysis, demonstrated the kind of multi-source intelligence fusion that most militaries aspire to, but few achieve under the pressure of active combat operations. Their work was invisible to anyone outside the intelligence cell, meticulous in its attention to detail, and decisive in its impact on the battlefield. They gave the brigade commander a target. More importantly, they gave him confidence. Confidence that the target was real, that the timing was right, and that the strike would achieve its intended effect. The brigade commander who chose to wait, who held fire at 09:15 when the general first arrived, who watched patiently through drone feeds and counted vehicles for 90 agonizing minutes while the building filled with targets, who resisted every instinct to strike immediately and risk a partial result, displayed the iron nerve and tactical discipline that separates a competent strike from a devastating one. Killing one general is significant. Killing a general, his colonels, and his entire planning staff who were in the brain of a formation in a single, precisely timed strike is catastrophic for the enemy in a way that no number of individual casualties can replicate. The artillerymen and drone operators who executed the strike with 4-minute precision, coordinating GPS-guided rounds with FPV strike drones and conventional artillery in a layered sequence that targeted the building, the exits, the vehicles, and the perimeter in turn, leaving no avenue of escape and no possibility of organized rescue, demonstrated a level of combined arms coordination that Russian forces in this war have never matched and likely never will. Somewhere in eastern Ukraine tonight, a Russian offensive that was weeks in planning is now a stack of blank papers on an empty desk in a destroyed building. The general who was going to lead it is dead under the rubble. The colonels who are going to execute it are dead beside him. The staff officers who built the fire support plans, the logistics arrangements, the timing sequences, all of it, are buried in the same grave. And the Ukrainian defenders who were the intended targets of that offensive are still in their positions, still reinforcing, still preparing, still watching through drone cameras and listening to Russian frequencies, waiting for whatever comes next and ready to destroy it. Ukraine fights, Ukraine hunts, Ukraine decapitates. This is Iron Front. The battlefield speaks louder than propaganda.